Hello. How are y'all?
Good, how are you?
Excellent. Are you on the panel or?
They are, yeah.
Oh, great. Awesome. Perfect.
I guess the panelists are sitting up front here. Yeah. Have us start.
We should have worn our classes.
Too soon. Too soon. Yeah, trigger us.
It was funny because, in all seriousness, we went back and forth before, and because it was just me, originally me, Pete Sawyer, and Chief Campos, and I was like, yeah, I think we should wear glass coats, and then somebody said, no, I don't have a glass coat, and I'm like, all right, whatever. I'm wearing a glass coat, and then we all wore glass coats, and we didn't eat. Because she was just, we were talking about, it was like 90 degrees.
Oh yeah, that room
wasn't
was
like
so
this.
warm.
Yeah.
You look sharp, Chief.
I'm a picture guy. Let me take a picture of these distinguished panelists here.
Mm.
Yeah, we can get them all in.
It's better than the one with people in it.
All right.
Senator Coons will be live streaming the event as well on his YouTube channel. So if you have
Live streaming.
anyone at
breakfast
home
and
who
live
would like to like to watch.
Baskets look good on live stream.
Watch the Texas crew are going to come in. That's not right. They're not really not uniformed, right?
What's that?
They're not going to come in with the Texas guys.
I don't know.
They're not.
I don't know.
They're representing the association and the union, so they're probably not. They're probably wearing suit and ties.
Yeah,
I'm
probably.
guessing.
The Coons staff asked me this morning what you all would be wearing.
Oh,
So
really?
I don't know. That gave
What
them
did you tell
time.
them?
I said the uniforms, but nothing more specific. So. Has UD finished classes for the semester?
Classes finished, but exams are actually tomorrow is the last day of classes. Next Friday, and then Saturday they do what we call reading day,
Okay.
and then they're starting exams on Sunday. I don't understand that, but
Yeah. And then when's graduation?
the following the convocations start next Thursday. So Thursday, Friday, and then the big commencement Saturday.
Okay, so Memorial.
Yeah, it's
weekend.
always Memorial Day weekend. So. But we used to do a bunch of convocations after commencement, and that was horrible. So now, all the convocations are done in advance. So commencement's over at like, I don't know, 11 o'clock, and then
Yeah.
it's kind of done for the day.
Has it
Are you
been?
from Delaware? Or
I'm not. I'm
yeah.
from Kent County, but Kent County, Michigan.
Okay,
So
gotcha.
yeah.
Where'd you go to college?
At the University of Michigan.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, and then I went to Harvard Law School,
Nice.
and then moved to LA, and then moved here. So
Yeah.
I've been all over.
Good stuff. Good stuff.
And if you want to change the order, feel free. If someone wants the end.
Blow up like that.
It's serious prestige Harvard Law. My niece went to Duke Law.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. I apologize for Chief McCabe making a mess. What did you do? Sit on that, Nick?
That was not expected.
Has it been? Have you had issues on UG's campus
We've
in
been
the way?
knock on wood. We've been pretty good with meeting with our student groups in
Yeah.
advance and kind of. I often say like I'm an umpire. I call in the captains and go, "Here's the ground rules. If you do this, you're all right." So thank God we were able to hold off on an encampment. They did occupy a space in front of the Biden School of Public Policy, but they didn't have tents or anything, so they got bored. They didn't have phone chargers and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So they break it up relatively fast.
Yeah.
They did it for 3 days, but they were like coming and going.
Okay.
So,
Yeah, my fiance went to UCLA undergrad in law school, and so we've been following that.
yeah, I'm friends
Pretty
with the
well.
police chief out there. That poor guy, he's getting run through the ringer.
Yeah, I bet. Yeah.
Do you need me to adjust that at all?
Oh no, I just didn't know how to turn it on.
Oh, it's on.
Hey, pass
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's ready to go.
For the graduation.
We're reaching out to you guys to see whether you'll help.
Would you mind
We'll run
doing a
that
mic
by
check?
Yeah, I know
Yeah.
they said that, but I think Mike was going to
Testing,
reach back out and
testing.
say, are you talking, you want help for
Well, then-
regular
Testing,
codes.
testing.
You want,
Awesome.
What we wanna
you
do
want
is
our
have you,
mobile
And
field
is it okay
force.
that they don't have?
I don't.
Yeah,
maybe,
I'll
I
pick
don't
it up
know. Let's
here.
see what the
Okay,
intelligence suggests over the next week or so. But for right now, we were trying to get you guys to help out with traffic posts, so we could pull our people off traffic posts, put them in the stadium.
And I kind of thought that, but I'm like, but a lot of times Newark does traffic posts.
Well, but they're hard to deal with. They're like, oh, we don't have nobody signed up. I'm like, come on, man, we can't wait till the last second. So we wanted to make sure we
Have
had
to make sure you have
everything.
enough. Yeah, we'll get something out.
But we like we're doing. Are you familiar with Viper teams? The FBI has this stuff called Viper teams. They're basically like looking at people as they come in. So we're gonna have like 6 Viper teams, I think, out there, kind of looking at everybody coming in.
How do you get them? Just
Well, I got a guy assigned full time to the FBI.
so they.
Yeah, so he's just I had to fill out a letter and send it requesting it.
Oh, it's nice.
Yeah.
Cool. Never heard of such a thing. Yeah, we'll get some. I mean, good pay jobs out there for you. Mike was going to inquire, do we need traffic or were you looking for mobile field force? Because
Yeah, I mean,
our mobile field force, so typically that you don't get both.
Right.
You can have a little bit of both, but like mobile field force is going to come and they're going to be secluded somewhere out of sight.
Yeah.
It's not like they're going to be in uniform and then switch to ride here.
Yeah, I'm just trying to
I
set up
can't
for every
imagine.
scenario, like if students come and protest, right, we'd allow them, we'd set up an area right outside of the stadium for them, but like if the outside people come in, we're gonna be like, public sidewalk.
Did you get an assessment from the people that were doing it before, or were they from students, or were a mix, or?
So what's happening all across the country is the
People.
local students for justice in Palestine, they're really being used as pawns. The outside, what I like to call agitators.
Antagonist, you're right.
Yeah, they're getting
Antagonists.
them all wound up, and then they're using them to get their invitation to come on campus, and it's a mess. Like the last news release I just saw, I forget what school it was. It might have been Arizona State, whatever. They arrested 70 people, and only 20 were students.
Yeah.
You got 50 people that aren't students that are So I'm more concerned. Like we won't let anybody bring in a banner that's like on a pole. But there's not, like, anybody could put anything they want underneath their cap and gown, or they could decorate their cap and gown. I'm just worried, I don't want people, like, charging the stage, and,
Right.
I mean, at Michigan, they
Yeah,
had
they
a little bit of a
interrupted.
mess. They were the
Yeah.
first ones.
Yeah.
Then poor Jerry Seinfeld, he got booed at Duke. You see that?
Yeah.
Was it anything in particular he said? I just saw the headline.
No,
I
as
didn't-
soon as they introduced him, they started doing, like,
Yeah,
they
people were, like,
said
walking
like 40 people left, but then after they left, apparently the crowd started yelling, Jerry, Jerry. And I think the rest of it was fine.
Yeah. So Kate was explaining to me a bit about the platform, so it'd be kind of like a statewide hiring platform to make it easier to apply, sort of.
Yeah, that's the second part of it. So,
Okay.
yeah, we're gonna try to create a marketing campaign that draws
Yeah.
everybody to a single website, the association's website. And then there they can access agency information and get access to a common app. And we
Yeah.
were starting to build that yesterday as a team.
Yeah.
And, once you fill it out once, and Pat does a great job explaining it's similar to applying to colleges, right?
Yeah.
Once your app's done, you can pretty much submit it wherever you want.
Yeah, and pick the departments you want it to go to.
Yeah.
Nice. And you're looking for state and federal funding.
I think we're pretty close to getting some help from the state.
Okay.
And then federally to hopefully maintain it, because
Yeah.
it is, right now, we have it built out about 6 months.
Okay.
But the goal would be obviously, that if we continue the relationship with the vendor, they
Yeah.
manage a lot of the data,
Okay.
and then they can supply us with, reports and stuff like
Yeah.
that to help us maybe adjust
Yeah.
any kind of, marketing scheme we have going on.
Well, I know Senator Coons would be happy to help with getting congressionally directed spending for class. We just are in the middle of fiscal year 2025, but for 2026, we'd be happy to help get an application.
Well, we just submitted, our application tonight. Missy and I were on the phone with our grant writer till like midnight.
Oh, wow.
But she had to have it submitted by, I think it's actually by today.
Yeah.
So it is for one of the lines from COPS.
Okay.
Hugh Clements came and spoke at the mid-year and talked about a line in there that was designed specifically for these innovative type of projects.
Yeah.
He was familiar with our project, so we talked with him probably a week or so later, And,
I'm gonna text him and see if he's in DC. If he is not, see if we can get him in here.
yeah, you know, I was,
I should have called him yesterday.
yeah.
I'm sure he's here somewhere.
So, you know, I mean, I don't know, the grant writers seem to think it capped out at like 125,000. I didn't remember seeing that, but, you know, hopefully we can find something to keep it rolling, because if it's, these guys are really confident that this is gonna work.
Yeah.
I know they're selling themselves, right, but still, you know, it would be a shame to have to shut it down and try to
Yeah,
stand it
so
back up again.
yeah. And this company has done this in other states or smaller jurisdictions.
They have. They've never done for policing a statewide project. They've only done a statewide project for the Department of Corrections in, I forget what state it was in, but a lot of success. They went from a 40% vacancy rate to a +9.
Oh wow.
So yeah, so they're confident.
Yeah. That's exciting.
Now, do you anticipate? So you're going to be the moderator, right?
Yeah.
Are you going to kind of follow that script and
Yeah,
call
pretty
on
much.
us?
Yeah, most of the questions are kind of just for down the line. So,
Okay.
and if there's one that you really want to answer, but probably just down the line.
Are you gonna save your big, or that pitch for the end, or are you gonna work it into somewhere in here?
Well, there's a question in there that says what plans do you have and what can we do to help.
Yeah.
And I was just going to say, you know, we do have a project we'd like to discuss it.
Yeah. Yeah.
If you okay with that? Or?
Yeah. Yeah, I wish Senator Coons could hear more about it, but he's probably going to give remarks and have to leave fairly quickly to vote. And, but we'll certainly brief him about it afterwards.
What's he do? Does he ride Amtrak back and forth?
Yeah.
Yeah. Do they all kind of ride together? I mean, Senator Carper and
I don't know.
They
Yeah.
all do their own thing.
Yeah.
I was before I retired from the state police when Senator Biden President Obama was running mate. I was the liaison for the Secret Service, and we were blocking full intersection control. And this one day they're like, "He's taking the train." I'm like, "He's taking the train? Are you kidding me?" Yeah.
I saw him, Biden on the train when he was running for president in summer of 2019, and I was surprised he was on the train, but
Yeah.
still on the train.
He
Loves that Amtrak.
Yeah.
And he's a pretty liberal guy. In between when he was vice president and president, I was getting gas one day, and he's at the gas station gassing up his car. I'm like, what are you doing?
He was home Cinco de Mayo and wanted to go out to get tacos.
No, really?
Ended up not doing it.
Yeah.
He's-
Do you coordinate a lot with the Secret
So
Service?
we have jurisdiction of his home
Okay.
in Delaware, so yeah, whenever he's in town, we're there.
Yeah.
And then when he goes out, you know, obviously make plans. So when he does impromptu things like that, it's just like,
Yeah.
he wants to go get tacos. We're getting tacos or church. He goes to church a lot.
Yeah.
Ice cream,
Yeah.
lots of, you know, which I guess if you look back through history, I mean, I remember, what was it, Clinton used to jog down the streets of Washington,
Yeah.
stop at McDonald's.
Yeah.
It's like, you know, stuff that they strongly discourage, but then,
Yeah, when that first time he came off the train, we had every intersection blocked. And he gets off and he's like, "I'm going out to my doctor." So I look at the Secret Service guy, I'm like, "I can't move all that."
Yeah.
And then speaking of ice cream, he gets down to the doctor's, and I got every intersection blocked. Got to his house. He's like, "Charcoal pit." I'm like, oh my god. Hello, how are you?
Hey, how are you? Which office are you with? Oh, great. Thanks for coming. Thanks for finding the room. It's a bit hidden.
I had a whole thing typed down.
check, test. 1, 2, 3, test. Mic. Testing. Hello.
Is this SC4? SC4?
Yeah,
Oh,
hi,
Aaron?
I'm Erin. Yeah,
Hi, nice to
Adam,
meet you.
Nice to meet you in person.
Cool. All right, so we have Chris.
Hi, Erin Freeman. Nice to meet you.
All right, and we have Tim Whitaker.
Hi,
How are you, Tim?
Erin. Nice to
Chris,
meet
nice to
you.
meet you.
I'm with Thunder Coons office.
Okay, how are you?
Yeah. Take us wherever you like.
Good luck. Good to meet you. For a Delaware contingent.
Great to meet you. BD.
Yeah, pleasure to meet you. Hey, Chris, Dr. God, nice to meet you.
Does this guy have to be in here?
To heckle you.
You have the signs, his face
Wow.
on a stick,
Wow.
yeah.
Yeah, cloud.
You're all here for Police Memorial Day as well? Yeah, so sure. So we were thinking coming here because we just came and we figured traffic was gonna be a bear getting here, but we got here fairly quickly. It's nice.
Now, I know Texas is big, but is it safe to assume you guys know Will Johnson?
I work for Will Johnson.
Look at that.
I work for him.
Yeah. Oh, you work for him?
I'm from Arlington.
Yeah, okay. Good stuff. We were on ICP board together.
Good. We've gotten crossways with Will once or twice.
Maybe, yeah.
And in Houston, we really don't recognize Arlington, Dallas, Fort Worth.
Right, Houston's the only police department in Texas.
Are there others?
That's fun.
But you're without a chief again. So.
We're without a chief.
Well, the colonel's looking if you're hired.
Yeah.
We're hiring.
55. I didn't
Thank
get
you. I didn't
fired.
bring any
Just,
tattoos.
No.
I'll send
I
you
don't
one.
collect
I'll send you
anyway.
one.
it's a mandatory retirement. Don't get any ideas that we retired.
This would look pretty good.
There you go. We are hiring. All ranks.
Have anything from the small state of Delaware? But
Thank you.
yeah, you're welcome.
Yeah, we get here and I look at these guys and I'm like, did you bring coins or patches? I didn't bring anything. Did you get out to the Candlelight Vigil the other night?
Yes.
Yeah. I got, I had the honor of being a name reader a couple years ago.
Oh, very good.
It's intense sitting up there and, looking out at that crowd. Yeah.
Yeah, we had our very first officer read this week.
Wow.
He never looked up, and I guess that's why he.
Yeah. Just, I could see I wanted to look out until you're done.
Yeah. A humbling experience for sure, because the families are all like right there in front of the stage, and there's that massive, sea of people out there. The weather was decent, right? You had decent
Yeah,
weather the other
it
night?
It was.
Yeah.
It didn't rain, that's the
Yeah.
main thing.
Yeah. Right. What, so are you still with Arlington?
Yes, sir.
Trying to think of one buddy's name. Cyrus, maybe? Cyrus,
No, you're probably thinking of Kyra Springs.
Kyrus, yeah. How's he doing?
He's doing good.
Yeah.
He's one of our deputy chiefs now.
Right.
So he's doing
Which
really
means
good.
he'll be a chief somewhere else pretty soon.
He probably will be,
A
yeah.
lot of departments. They
Should
reach
have brought
Arlington to grab
applications.
their next chief, a bunch of them.
Yeah, he just got promoted last year. So I think most of them will stay till after 2026 so they can put all that FIFA stuff on their resumes.
Right.
And then they'll start looking.
So we're all Eagles fans, so tell me about your Cowboys. You're the greatest.
I'm gonna leave the room.
We're not all Eagles. We're not all Eagles
You're not an
fans.
Eagles fan?
I don't know.
How are you not an Eagles fan?
No,
It's
because
always
nobody
like the
likes those dirty
opposition.
birds. Come on.
Yeah.
We've
Like a
only got one
challenge.
problem as Cowboys. We can't figure out how to fire the owner.
And I will tell you this,
We
every
finally
Eagles and
found a
Cowboy
way
games,
for
they
Washington.
fight
Yeah.
all the time.
Yeah.
You know, we have a jail in our stadium. too.
Yeah.
So does
Oh,
Philly.
yes, Philly was
Yeah, so
I
they
was
fight
there to
all the
witness one of them fights.
Yeah.
time.
We're calling them the Eagle Dogs now because they're getting all these kids from the University of Georgia in. So.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
That's not a very well-known fact. It was very popularly known that the old Veteran Stadium had that prison, and actually the judge,
Yeah, they had a judge there at every game.
his son was a county officer for a while. But we got, Philly took a lot of heat for that. I don't share that there's others that
Oh,
do.
there you
Had a judge there, you get some magic.
They even arraigned them right there on the spot when they got locked up.
That's crazy.
Yeah, we even have one in the new Ranger Stadium.
The old Veteran Stadium was out of control.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah. You couldn't bring your family there if you
Yeah.
weren't wearing green.
Well, this is all of Philadelphia that's like that, that's what we've heard.
If you go to a basketball game, it's not, because my son is a Bulls fan, and I still take him to some of the games, and basketball's not like that, Flyers is not like that, it's football mostly.
I grew up there.
Baseball.
It's not that bad.
That's okay, we'll stick with the legend.
The Cowboys Stadium is legit though. I've been in there on a couple tours. Yeah, it's beautiful. It's a museum.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
We did give to Randy White,
Yeah. Randy White was a Delaware guy.
Linden Acres,
It's hard to believe that stadium's 15 years old already.
yeah.
Yep.
He stayed at art, and now it's,
They're
He grew up in
remodeling it right now.
Linden Acres.
Are they
Randy
really?
White did? Yeah.
yeah,
I knew he went to
I had
the
a cousin that lived there, his name was in the sidewalk, in front, you know how like, put a new sidewalk, he had his hand in his name.
You remember a guy named
Oh,
Joe
I
Campbell
remember
who played for the
that.
Raiders?
Yes.
So Joe Campbell went to Sally. I live right street from Sally. So our backyard and his backyard backed up to one another. So he was always like this, big kid. So he wins the Super Bowl, and he comes back home after we had this huge snowstorm, and we're sledding down Monkey Hill, and he's like blow up tubes, and he gets up there. He's like, Paul Bunyan's coming down. He goes on one of these tubes, man. He must have wiped out 10 kids.
I can see that.
He was probably like 280 pounds or whatever.
It's like bowling. So crowded last night?
Oh, yeah.
Was it?
A lot of people there.
We were just talking about like trying to get folks to go, unless you have a line of duty, it's hard to get people to come down here. And we don't live that far, I mean, we're an hour and a half away. And through the years, it's just harder and harder. We lost an officer back in 2009
9 or 10.
or 11. Yeah, 11, and we had a good group. But we would bring a bus down for the first year, second year, less people on the bus. Then we were like, well, we're not going to pay for a bus for 8 people, and just a shame that we just can't get younger folks, or even the older for that matter, to come out anymore for stuff like this.
Yeah, we had one passed away or was killed in an accident in September. Darren McMichaels, a motor officer.
Mm,
He was on his way to work in Dallas, from Dallas. He lived down in like the Canton area.
mhm.
Accident happens in front of him. He stops to help that accident. He gets rear-ended from the back, falls over, and that car runs him over and keeps going.
I think I remember reading that. Well, I send a letter to they keep track of every officer that's killed in line of duty, and I send a letter and sign it. So I remember that.
How many from your department came down for this?
Our honor guard is here, and I think there's like 9 or 10 of them. Then our chief was here yesterday, our new chief. He's from Baltimore County.
Okay. Hmm.
What's his name?
Alexander Jones.
think he should be here about the same, I believe.
Okay.
I know our press secretary is walking with me though, so.
Oh, great. Okay.
You think they'll have a vote? They've got, the vote on the next nominee is gonna be a little after you, right?
I hope so.
Yeah.
We'll see. How long have you been at Coons?
About a year, like April of last year, I think is when I got hired.
No, you're
Just
here
learn
as
as much as I can to
Yeah.
rhyme, solid.
Kevin is
Yeah.
Fetterman.
I have no idea what
Senator Fetterman.
under a capital or
For like a year and some changes.
maybe not under Virginia,
Pennsylvania.
but it's not the same building.
Just in Oregon's ENC is.
So, well, there's that.
I know.
Yeah.
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 One of my friends worked in the office, and I was like, I want to do this job. So, like, so our correspondence been his job, so, yes.
Yeah. So you must be curious.
Yeah, yeah.
I think
So,
there's
yeah,
just-
so I'm technically shared staff, but like, you know, somebody's
Yeah.
working for
Yeah.
right, so.
It's more open now.
So I think all education, as much as I can help out with, my development grants and stuff.
Nice.
In ways.
I like it. I've learned a lot. I think it's awesome. I mean, everything, I've had like a cool view into a legal world that I don't totally understand, but
Yeah.
it feels good.
Yeah. Are you struggling?
Every day.
Yeah.
I haven't made a decision yet, but
That's funny,
I was gonna
though.
say,
It is.
but I mean, I think of like, sometimes I look at some of the words.
Yes, it's a possible, but it's
oh,
not
it's
obvious.
such a
Yeah.
tough frame too.
Yeah, I came down here and I wasn't sure about that. So I want to know
Yeah, yeah.
how to get here.
I went over to the Capitol to look for it. It's sort of way out. So I was running a lot of time. It's right there.
Yeah.
I didn't get to it, but I just made it.
I remember that game. It's not as bad as the.
Chris, you going over to the memorial?
But
No, we're flying
I
out.
think Dan too, though, like there's a time where the time was
Fuck, I had to lose
Yeah.
we had everybody kind of understood a little bit of the trying to promote them. And I
One
think
of our
there's
assistants
now
was just
some
like costing me $400.
all the money
Didn't
spent
cost
on
me that.
posts
It was a little bit over.
every year, which didn't even have to do that. Whether you agree with it or not, we didn't have to do that. It's a luxury, not a necessity.
How long you get
yeah, well, it's rules to get them in there, I guess.
Oh, cool. Is this like, I feel like I took like I entered up here in college, staff said, I took like they're very full track.
Yeah.
But I'm like always curious, like people can come in.
Because it was still set up like the hotel and they
But it's like everything that like to hire people as opposed to.
But it's like,
Hey, how are you, sir? Good.
oh, there he is.
Morning.
Morning.
Well, how are you?
Nice to see you.
Tim Whitaker from Houston.
Nice to see you, sir. Thanks for visiting us. Yeah, great to see you.
Patrick Crocker.
Great to
Pleasure
see you,
meet
sir.
Sir Joe Block.
Thank you for being here.
Rick McKay, great to meet you, sir.
Great to see you all. Thank you. Hello, everybody. So Senator Coons, we're just voting, so I'm sure he'll be here momentarily. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having us.
So I hear there are 40,000 police officers in DC today. There's a lot. I figure this will be the safest day of the year.
There's a lot. There's a
Safest
lot.
week. But the traffic is
Yeah.
pretty tough. The guy who I met with a little earlier represents a lot of the federal law enforcement agencies, said he had to get on a scooter and ride a scooter in.
I'm not trying
You
that.
know, no, looks dangerous.
Timing was right for us. We came in right after rush hour and we got here in an hour and a half straight in.
You guys could all be like police officers. They all sit in the back too.
Mhm.
Nobody ever sits up front.
Or at church, and both the same.
Right.
Only the best.
These people in the back
There you
row.
go.
Yes, Senator, those three are pretty shady.
Here comes a brave soul up front.
Yeah, she must have heard us.
One of the challenges, as you'll hear from Senator Coons and myself, is that we passed a lot of really good legislation here in the Senate on a bipartisan basis that's sort of stuck in the House. So we need to encourage our friends in the House of Representatives to move on.
Something just passed last night, he was telling us. Something passed last night that was,
I'm not
Yeah,
sure what that was.
Senator Coons and Fisher's Recruit and Retain Act
Oh, okay.
passed last night, which was exciting, yeah.
Great. And here he is.
Gentlemen, how are you?
Good to see you. Good to see you.
Want me to sit while you come? We're waiting on me.
Whatever. Why don't you all sit down?
Why don't we let the talented, seasoned senator from Texas start, and then my folks are going to hand me whatever remarks I have for them.
Well, that reminds me of a few years ago where somebody was being very kind in introducing me, but they got a little nervous and they called me a senior citizen instead of a senior senator. So I guess I resemble that remark too. But thank you all for taking the time to have this conversation. Of course, we have representatives of the Texas Municipal Police Association, Chris Ceballos, who represents more than 30,000 local, state, and county law enforcement officers across the great state of Texas. I'm also happy our friends with the Houston Police Officers Union. Tim Whitaker is here, who began his career with the Houston Police Department in 1986 and has served on the board of the HPOU since 2012. As we all know, this is a police week here in Washington, D.C. We don't just honor our law enforcement heroes one week of the year, but this week we take a special moment to express our appreciation for the service and sacrifice of those who wear the uniform. As we know, this is politically fraught times we're living in, from dangerous anti-police rhetoric to attacks against law enforcement officers. The law enforcement community has shared more than its usual challenges in the recent years. And Congress needs to do more to support and empower those who wear the uniform, and that includes investing in the next generation of officers. Providing law enforcement with the tools that you need to do your job to not only help recruit new officers, but keep them for many years to come. And I was just visiting with some representatives of the federal law enforcement agencies talking about all the salary pressures and the retirement benefits and the like, which disincentivize many law enforcement officers from staying in the important positions that they're in. And we all know there's a lot of competition for the best and brightest, which makes things a little more challenging, to be sure. As I said here in the Senate, Senator Coons is my partner, co-chair on the Law Enforcement Caucus, and he and I serve in the Judiciary Committee that typically has jurisdiction over many of these issues. And I'll mention a few of those pieces of legislation that we worked on. The American Law Enforcement Saver Act would promote officers' access to trauma kits, which help them quickly respond to injuries during emergency calls. Senator Coons has supported this life-saving bill, and it's actually passed the Senate last year. This is one of those bills we hope our friends in the House will pass and take up soon. Then we took a big step forward in trying to provide law enforcement officers with de-escalation training. Again, in Texas, we have rural departments, and we have suburban departments, and then we have urban departments. And not all of them have the same tax base or the resources necessary to provide some of this critical training. But the Law Enforcement De-Escalation Training Act has been, I think, responsible for saving lives of law enforcement and also some people who as a result of a confrontation with law enforcement, become violent and a danger to themselves and the officer. So this is important training that should be available to officers across the board, whether you come from a rich urban district or a relatively less well-off suburban or rural area. Then the Recruit and Retain Act, of course, that Senator Coons and Senator Fisher passed the Senate last year with my support, which addresses those personnel shortages, which I know you're all experiencing. And then finally, as you know, physical resources are just a piece of the puzzle. We need to invest in mental health support for our brave officers who bear the heavy burdens each day as they work to keep us safe. I remember a meeting at the Houston Police Department not that long ago when talk about the sort of trauma, whether it's car accidents, shootings, stabbings, other incidents that most of us have never experienced in our lifetime, which eventually over time have an impact on the officer. We need to make sure that all of them have the opportunity to get access to mental health support that they need and deserve. I worked with Senator Duckworth on the Public Officer Safety Support Act, which is now law, which ensures that first responders experiencing PTSD and families who lose a loved one to suicide get financial support they deserve. This Justice and Mental Health Collaboration Program, which provides grants for mental health and crisis intervention teams, is also reauthorized through a bill I introduced with Senator Klobuchar, Senator Coons and my partner on the Judiciary Committee. Finally, I mentioned a few years ago when we had a terrible shooting involving 5 officers in Dallas. President Obama, President Bush came to a memorial service, but Chief Brown, who then went on from Houston to go to, Dallas and then to Chicago, and I think he's probably retired now after many years of distinguished service, he said, we ask police to do too much. We want them to be social workers, we want them to be psychologists, we want them to enforce the law, we want them to do too much. Sort of reminds me of how we treat teachers these days. It seems like all of the challenges either end up on the street in the hands of law enforcement one way or the other, or they end up in our schools where kids are having challenges. Whether someone's experiencing mental health crisis or triaging an emergency, you are asked time and again to go above and beyond the scope of your training and traditional duties. So let me just close by saying I'm grateful for the service and sacrifice of all of the law enforcement officers in my state, but throughout the country. And especially we want to recognize your service and sacrifice during Police Week. So thank you for making the time to come here to Washington today. And I'll turn the floor over to my co-chair and colleague, Senator Coons.
Thank you, John. Folks, come on in. There's no collection from the front pew, as we say.
Everybody wants to sit in the back.
Yeah, I suspect this is a somewhat difficult place to find in the catacombs of the Capitol, so I'm thrilled. We've got some great folks who've joined us here today. Let me just start by thanking you, Senator Cornyn. You are a fierce partisan. Let the record reflect I recognize that Senator Cornyn fights with tools and is a Texan through and through. Someone, a San Antonio native who has served as a judge, both as on the state Supreme Court, as Attorney General, and is one of the most capable and challenging opponents on the partisan field of combat. But, as you just detailed at great length, also a committed bipartisan legislator. You recognize that for us to do our jobs and to get things done on behalf of the people of our states, whether it's the, 30 million residents of Texas or the barely million residents of Little Delaware, we have to sometimes put the tools down and figure out how we can advance legislation together. And I'm so grateful for your partnership. We've done a lot of good together. It helps me cash my paycheck to know that every now and then we fulfill our W-2, which says our job is legislator. So the bill you just described, the Recruit and Retain Act, that we're blessed to have Senator Fisher and Senator Klobuchar as our co-sponsors, cleared the Senate. Last night cleared the House, is on its way for the President to sign it into law. And it addresses the core topic that we are thrilled to have the 5 of you speaking to today. When I was county executive and responsible for the support and the staffing, the training and the deployment of the Newcastle County Police Department, this was a constant challenge for us. And that was before the current environment. We have far too many line of duty deaths. And your average young person contemplating their future and their career increasingly sees law enforcement as a dangerous profession. It is. And a lot of the legislation that Senator Cornyn talked about is designed to address and to remediate some of the trauma, some of the mental health challenges, some of the physical danger faced by the men and women of law enforcement. But it's also a career that is increasingly disrespected and under assault culturally and from a broader community perspective, and that also weighs on who is willing to raise their hand and come forward and sign up. And the recruitment process has always been challenging. The number of folks who we had to get in the door for an initial interview to actually fill an academy, when I was first briefed on this, 20 years ago, was stunning. Part of it is the polygraphs. Part of it is the background checks. Part of it is the drug testing. Part of it is just cultural norms and challenges. So a small piece of what Recruit and Retain Act would do is to allow federal grants to be used towards those recruitment expenses for background checks and polygraphs. The recruitment process takes too long. And from the moment someone says, yeah, I'm interested in a career in law enforcement, to when they're able to actually join an academy can be a year or more at times. There's no other career field where you say, I'm really interested in doing this, and they're like, we'll get back to you. Oh, and by the way, you have to spend a lot of your money on clearing all of these hurdles, and it's probably 1 in 100 that you're likely to actually end up on the force. So here to talk to us about these challenges is an incredible and talented panel from the great state of Texas, which is where I, of course, have to start. Is Chris Ceballos, the president of the Texas Municipal Police Association, correct me if I'm wrong, and Vice President Tim Whitaker of the Police Officers Union from the state of Texas, and from my own hometown and home state, Colonel Joe Block of the Newcastle County Police Department, who's had a long and distinguished career in the, can I say, the best law enforcement agency in the state? I'd be really in trouble if I did that. I'd be showing some sort of inappropriate favoritism, because we are blessed to have terrific police departments up and down our state. As you said, rural, suburban, urban, at all different levels. And I'm thrilled that Chief McCabe of Newcastle City Police Department, the city of Newcastle, is with us today as well. And Pat Ogden, Chief Ogden, who had a long and distinguished career with DSP, with the Delaware State Police, and is now president of the Delaware Association of Chiefs of Police, is the former president of the International Association of Campus Law Enforcement Administrators. There's a subset that's having an interesting year, and is today the police chief of the University of Delaware Police. So we've got an incredible panel. I'm excited to hear from you. I will confess already that the two of us have to go back and cast a vote sometime in the next 10 minutes, which is why, right, Jose's standing there at the back going like this. Who is going to make sure, Aaron, that we are moving in good order, taking questions, to the extent there's any logistics questions, we've got them addressed and resolved. Great, thank you. Let me close by just saying this. Police Week is an important moment when the country and the Congress need to focus on who you are, what you do, and why you do it, and say thank you. And recognize that ordered liberty requires those who will enforce order in a way that protects and defends liberty. We ask you to do the hardest job in America, which is to treat men and women who are literally having their worst day of their lives with respect and dignity when they often do not provide the same to you. And it is a challenge. We ask you to go into harm's way. We give you enormous power. We give you a badge and a gun, arrest authority, and the power of life and death, and then we ask you to exercise it with incredible dignity and precision. It is a very hard job. We need you, and we appreciate you, and we honor you. Thank you for your time today, and we look forward to hearing your testimony before this caucus. Thank you.
Thank you to Senators Coons and Cornyn for their opening remarks and for hosting this discussion on recruitment and retention issues facing state and local police departments across the country. You all gave such lovely introductions, so I'll jump right into the questions. I thought it would be helpful if we could begin by hearing from each of our panelists about why you decided to enter law enforcement and the career path that you've taken since entering. And we can maybe start at the end with Colonel Block and move down the panel.
Great. Thank you. Thank you for having us here today. And I'll start really, when I got in this profession, it was because it was a noble profession. It was something that people looked up to. I graduated from the University of Delaware, criminal justice degree, and I knew I didn't want to be confined to an office. I knew I wanted some independence in my job, and I knew that law enforcement offered me those abilities. I always had a passion to help others. I was always one to stand up for the underdog, and I thought policing would be that profession. What's interesting now is that when we have an academy graduation, I have to provide remarks prior to the graduation. And so typically I will go to the academy class before they graduate and ask why they got into the profession. And I will tell you that some of those core values and reasons that you get into the profession is the same. They want to be a part of their community, they want to help their community, they want to provide help to others. So I think that passion is still there, but there are a lot of obstacles to achieving that. And, you know, one of the lines I have in my remarks is oftentimes, who wants to work not from home, work shift work on holidays, work weekends, miss out on family events so that others can enjoy their time off. And that's essentially what we do. We're there to protect our communities so that they can enjoy their lives. And so it's really a passion, and I think over the years, that passion is still there, but there are a lot of obstacles to it. And I think both senators touched on the national narrative has to change. And I think communities are starting to realize that, and some departments are starting to panic with the recruitment and retention issues. And so I think it is being addressed, and I appreciate these senators bringing us here to hear our concerns, because they're not just from Delaware, they're from Delaware to Texas and everywhere in between. So thank you.
Thank you very much for this opportunity. And my answer is ironically different than the answer I gave 30 years ago. But it's the same concept. And the reason I say that is when people apply for this job, they want to say what they think is supposed to be said. But the reality is there's something that burns within all of us that makes us want to be first. We're drawn to help. We're drawn to situations that a lot of other people don't want any part of. And my very first experience with a police officer was watching, I was driving with my father, and somebody had a heart attack, and a police officer was giving him CPR. My father was a physician, got out and helped, and I watched how this police officer interacted with my dad and ran this scene, and it just was a remarkable thing to see. And as my dad got back to the car, we drove away, he said, don't ever drive past somebody that's in trouble. Because the reality is, statistics show that there are people that just don't know how to intervene or don't want to intervene. And this profession, that's what we do, and that's what draws us to this line of work. So that's, my interest it's always been, I'm drawn to serve, and I don't know how to explain that other than to say, we feel like we have something in us that we can use to help our society.
I too want to thank both of you for the opportunity. For me, I grew up in a law enforcement family. My father was a police officer. I'm the youngest of 6 boys in my family. 2 of my older brothers were police officers, and honestly, I've never wanted to do anything else in my life. And now that I'm 37 years into it, I'm kind of contemplating what am I going to do after this, because it's all I know and all I think about. And even growing up, my football coaches, my baseball coaches, they were all police officers in the neighborhood that I grew up in. And like Colonel Block mentioned, when I have new applicants coming in, I often ask them, what inspired you to become a police officer? And the typical answer is some interaction with police, like Chief McCabe just said. Oftentimes it's a coach, it's a school resource officer, it's some kind of interaction they had with police officers. So I think part of the problem that we're having now with recruitment is police officers that are in the profession are our best recruiters, and it is a noble profession. And years ago when I was coming into it, those mentors kind of encouraged people, and now you see police officers sometimes saying, hey, this is a thankless job. The community, I think there's widespread support in communities, but the narrative is that there's not that support there. So a lot of times our own police officers, who are our best recruiters, are turning people away from the profession. We need to turn that narrative around and get them to start recruiting them in. Thank you.
I started my career, first started with the Texas prison system, where I stayed for 5 years. In that prison system, I learned real quick that there was a lot of people in there that needed help. I decided at one point that I wanted to get out of the prison and actually become into law enforcement, where I applied for Arlington Police Department in Arlington, Texas. I've been there on the streets for 29 years. I've never left a patrol unit. I've always been on the patrol. I did have some close friends that were classmates ahead of me that were police officers that kind of helped ignite that in me, and I took a hold of it. Here I am today.
Yeah, I agree with everybody that was up here. It's exactly the same for me. And it sounds very cliche to say I joined the policing to help others, but it's really to help others who are unable to help themselves. And that's what you find out for a while. And I too was on patrol for 33 years, a very long time. I wish I was still out there, but I've kind of aged out of the patrol thing. And so for the last 5 years, I've been able to help police officers, and kind of like they said, they're the ones that in this era really need a lot of help, and it's good to know. I've lost 4 friends on the Houston Police Department in my 38 years to suicide, and it's good to know that they're in Washington, D.C. They care about the well-being and the mental health of police officers. The young guys out there, and maybe some of us old guys too, sometimes think we're the only ones out there doing the right thing. I often say we're the only ones rowing the boat, and it's good to know that there's others that are rowing the boat too. And it's very assuring when you run into somebody and they thank you for your service, but it's even more reassuring that it's happening up here. So I too am blessed to be here, and yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thank you all. I think it would also be helpful to hear about your departments and the communities you serve. Sort of the sizes of your departments, how long your officers are typically with your departments, and then moving into sort of the recruitment and retention issues, the biggest factors affecting recruitment and retention. So why officers who choose to leave decide to leave, and has that changed over time, and have your applicant pools changed over time?
You want me to start?
Or
Okay.
we can go the other way, either.
Okay,
Yeah.
go ahead.
Okay. So the Newcastle County Division of Police, we have an authorized strength of 415 officers. We have about 100 civilians. I can tell you that our authorized strength got increased to that 415 about 5 years ago, and we've gone to 401, but we've never gone over 401. We're currently down 58 officers with 3 pending retirement. So we're not in the worst spot we could be, but we're not where we want to be. Our officers typically are with our departments. It used to be they were at least with us 20 years. What we've seen in the last 5 years is folks that were hitting 20 years, which is the minimum age of retirement, and retiring to go on to do other things. Or we see a lot of, I call them kids, that are under 5 years that are leaving to go to other police departments, because right now law enforcement is very competitive. And I know my brothers from Delaware will share some of their struggles with it, but now it becomes, because everybody is in a crisis to hire folks, salaries are going up and people are leaving the department. I can tell you that when I started in 1994, once I had about 2 years on the county police department, I wouldn't have left for another department if you paid me. Because for me it wasn't about the money, and I had pride in my department. I bled brown. I would never go to the Delaware State Police who wears blue. I can tell you it's not like that anymore, because officers are going to where the money is. And so when another department offers more money, they're going to another department. And I'm saying that knowing that my department's paid more than to the gentleman sitting next to me, and his fear is always, I'm going to take his people. And what we realize as leaders is we're hurting each other. And we don't want to do that, but I'm down 60 people, so I have to do what I can do to get those positions filled, because at some point I'm not going to be providing the service that is expected from the communities in Newcastle County. The other thing that we're facing is, I started in 1994. It was under the COPS bill, where there's law enforcement officers hired across this country. I think it was like 100,000. So we had very large classes. My class was 44 officers. My last 2 classes, one was 12, the one before that was 5. It was unheard of. You wouldn't even run a class with 5 officers, but we started with 8, we ended up with 5. So things have changed, and but we police, just to touch on jurisdiction, Delaware is very convoluted when you talk about jurisdiction. but the Newcastle County Police patrols Newcastle County, which is a third the size of the state of Delaware. And to make it very simple, I could say we police our communities. Any of the main roads for the Delaware State Police. If you were in the city of Newcastle, which is 2 miles from my headquarters, they have their own police department. University of Delaware has its own. So there are other police departments within Newcastle County, but our primary jurisdiction is the communities. And that's why it's our communities that expect not just police to be there when they call 911. They expect to be in their communities with community policing. They expect us to do outreach, to host events. This weekend we're hosting Casting with the Cops. We're having a 5K run on Sunday, so we're always doing things within our community, which is something when these numbers go beyond 60, when you have to start shutting units down, it's those units, those extra units that are not essential to emergency services, which start to fall. And I'm going to do everything I can do to ensure that that doesn't happen, but we're getting close.
I work for the city of Newcastle, which is within Newcastle County. It's a small town. My agency is 17 strong. I have 17. I'm very lucky right now. That was I won in the academy. So I was increased to 19, but I was not able to fill that 19th spot. And one of the things that I've done is gone to the city and said, let's not hire these other two. It's contract time for the 17 that I have. We need to make them whole because we are competing against the larger agencies that do pay more. The issue is not necessarily that we're a stepping stone. We have become an agency, since I started, we've got more people retiring from this agency than they ever have. And this is one of the oldest police departments in the country, 1672. And for the first couple hundred years, that just was unheard of. But we now have a system in place that people want to stay and work. But it's not only gotten so competitive out there, now there's almost enticements from other agencies to hire certified officers, and that is a huge problem for the smaller agencies. I am a staunch advocate for municipal policing. We provide a level of service that the larger agencies just can't. We're going to be there. We're going to be there fast, and we're very visible. And I tell some of my officers that think about moving on to bigger places, do you want to write a report that where you were told what happened, or you want to get there and see what happened and intervene? That's the difference between these smaller agencies. But there is a natural progression, and obviously the larger agencies provide different units that people may have interest in. So we would never get in the way of that. But that natural flow has been disrupted with some of these enticements, with signing bonuses, lateral transfers. And we have had these discussions, offline and online, about the damage that it's doing to this profession. And we are very excited about talking about what we've designed here I think, to fix this. Because it's all about everything that has been said today in drafting messaging to repair the damage to this industry itself with fact, with nothing fluffy, just with facts. But and when we can get back to that natural flow for smaller agencies to say, I would love to sit across from a kid to say, give me 4 good years and I'll turn you into a great state trooper or to a great county cop. Knowing that there's somebody in the background to replace them with. We don't have that. So I've said this to my city. We are in the middle of a contract negotiation that is the most crucial contract this city's ever seen. Because I am sitting on some very young, marketable police officers that are being targeted. That's a bad word. That are being enticed by other agencies. And they know it, I know it. And if this isn't done right, I could lose half my agency overnight. So it is scary. It's very scary right now. And, that's why we were very glad to come down here. And the other part is, the city's, it's a 6,000 resident city. They're building, we expect almost double over the next 3 or 4 years with apartments that are going straight up. It is shocking for anybody that knows the city of Newcastle because it's been like that for hundreds of years. So we expect that we're going to get bigger and we're going to need more people. That's the other issue. And then the city swells to about 20,000 during the day with schools, businesses, and stuff like that. So that's what we look like.
So I work in a unique environment. The University of Delaware is the flagship institution of higher education in our state. Our community is about 25,000 students, faculty, and staff. The department size is 92 full-time employees, broken down between police, dispatch, security, and civilian personnel. But One of the unique things that I have that I'm blessed with is we have two great student programs within our police department. One's our cadet program. They essentially perform security type functions. There are extra eyes and ears on campus. They provide safe rides for a student that doesn't feel safe walking at night. And then we also have an award-winning EMS program. So we have our own ambulance. We have students that run the program. Police officers actually coordinate it. And because of our calls for service, I started cross-training police officers a few years ago to be nationally certified EMTs as well. So as a result of those partnerships with our students, I'm very passionate about recruitment and retention in my role as president of the Chiefs Association, because I see what's going on throughout the state. But I'm really blessed because in my department, about 40% of our police officers are all UD graduates who were involved in our student programs, either our cadet program or our EMS program, and they never left. They graduate from college, they come into the department, they understand the environment that we're in and the challenges that we face in an academic environment. So it's really good. And another creative thing that we did recently that I would encourage, all cities and towns across the country have college campuses on their campus. So one of the things that we did a few years ago is citizens police academies are kind of an up-and-coming thing that people do to encourage people to come in and learn about the police department. Well, we found that most of the people that were signing up for our citizens police academies were students. So we went to the CJ department and said, hey, let's turn this into a class. So we have a 400-level criminal justice class where the students come in, they spend a whole semester, each week it's a different police officer teaching the class, and they get 3 college credits as a result. And my department has hired people out of that program and other departments throughout the state. So a lot of challenging times ahead, but I'm pretty blessed, so I'll pass it along to my colleagues who are facing more important challenges than I am.
So for those of y'all that don't know where Arlington is, it sits between Dallas and Fort Worth. We currently have 738 sworn positions. We are down about roughly 35. To give you an example, we have 18 officers that are currently in field training, meaning they'll be going through field training and come out to the streets. We've lost 19 officers the first 3 months of this year. So those officers will be filling holes. What also has happened for us in recruiting-wise is we've lowered our standards. When I applied in 1995, you had to have a 4-year college degree and nothing else. They've since changed that. They've since changed it to where you can have a 4-year college degree, or if you worked for the city as what's called a police service assistant or a detention officer, then you can apply for the academy without a degree. Just about every city in North Texas has started lateral programs. It's exactly what they're talking about. Departments are taking officers from each other, and you're getting incentives like, $10,000 sign-on bonus, or $15,000 sign-on bonus, or anything that they can to attract officers already trained to come in and work for the department. So those are some of the things that we've been having to deal with. We've had 3 academies over the past 3 years where we tried to hire 40 people, 40 officers, and we get 20 to 24. And usually within that 24, 3 or 4 of them would leave before they even finish the academy. So we're struggling with getting new recruits, and we've also brought it up to our city council to start showing them. That's how we're getting around some of this, is we're starting to show them, like we showed them just recently. We haven't increased the number on patrol in 16 years. So if you can imagine, we've had 16 years where they've built AT&T Stadium, they've built the new Globe Life Field Stadium, they've built all these hotels around us, and we're still running with the same number of officers. So those are some of the things that we're facing when it comes to recruiting and retention. Lastly, what they did is in 2006, they got rid of retirement insurance. Luckily, I was hired before 2006, so I get insurance when I retire. Well, those officers that were hired in 2006, their 20 years hits in 2026, the same time that we get World Cup. And some of those officers are already saying, I'm leaving. So we're going to be really hurting when it comes time that we need all these extra officers, because there's no reason to stay. Before, the reason to stay was for insurance, but now we're going to hit 20 and they're going to leave, and they're more marketable at 40 years old, 43 or 45 than if they stay till their 50s. So that's some of the things we're trying to get by. Just recently we had a meeting with our chief, who is now fixing to subsidize patrol with detectives. we're having to pull detectives out of the office, put them back in uniform, and have them come back out and work calls on the streets. So it's a tough deal for us right now, but we're working through it. Our officers are overworked. We've gone through tons of overtime. We're still managing to get the job done.
Yeah, I could talk about HPD all day, so tell me when it's time to stop. We have 5,000 officers. We need about 7,000 officers. So we're short about 2,000 people. We have 1,000 civilians. We need about 3,000 civilians, so we are very, very short in Houston. We have about 660 square miles in Houston that we patrol. So I'm very proud of the 5,000 that are able to do that. That's almost unheard of. We're having a hiring problem as well. We have 4 academies a year that have about 70 persons in those academy classes. We are putting those people in there. We have a class in there right now that was 80, and we celebrated the fact that we were able to find 80 people that want the job. But I will also say on retaining officers, so many of them today, kind of like you said, they get out of the academy and they see things that humans are not supposed to see, and they tap out. You know, I have a good friend that just did that. He was in the field training program. He did 2 DOAs in one day, one of which was a little kid, same age as his child, and he said, "That's it, I'm done." And it cost a lot of money to hire and train somebody, and so that's kind of what's going on in Houston, because it is such a big city, incredibly short. Houston has all the events that are coming up. You have to do more with less, and we're asking those young guys to work and work and work. And being the old guy, sometimes it's like, but look at the money you're making, trying to cheer them up. And we're like, yeah, but I don't have time to spend the money. And although it's funny, it's really not funny. And part of the problem too is the whole court system, and I think it's nationwide. A lot of our guys are getting very frustrated that they will jokingly tell me that by the time they do the report and file charges, the suspect's already out of jail and he's back home, but the officer is not. And so that's a big problem in Houston too. So we are all very short. We're all kind of in the same boat, I guess.
Could we take one quick picture with you all before we have to run and vote on the form? 1 second. Stand at this end, I'll stand at this end. We'll just take a quick 2 seconds.
Jim, I just added a few, about 6 months, a year ago, I had a chance to do a ride-along.
Oh,
with one of your patrol officers. It was an entirely new perspective that I had before, because the officer was outnumbered, like hundreds to 1, and would drive into neighborhoods where he said, these people who you're encountering here, they get up in the morning and they commit one crime after another, and he said many of them are frequent flyers with the police department, had multiple arrests and the like. So it's a pretty sobering experience to ride along with the police officers. Give me great new appreciation for the challenges that each of you face and the people that you work with. So thank you.
Thanks, folks. We're going to take a quick look at this main camera right here for 1 second. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Along with Mayor Whitmer.
Good. So far, so good.
Thanks again.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jerry.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Appreciate it. Honored to meet
It's
you.
amazing, the panel's made up of Delaware
Thank you,
and
sir.
Texas police officers. Coincidence.
So I think moving next to the efforts that you all have to take to sort of boost recruitment and retention, Chief McCabe, you sort of alluded to a new project that you're working on in Delaware that you're hoping will boost recruitment in the state. So I wondered if you could speak about that project, and then if anyone else wants to jump in and talk about the efforts their departments are taking.
Absolutely, I appreciate that. So, just to give you a little backstory, last summer we met as a board. So, Chief Ogden is the president, I'm the vice president of the association. And we had communicated early summer about some issues that we were just talking about. We're kind of taking from each other. And the thought was, we're using a lot of resources to entice people to leave. $25,000 signing bonuses, things like that. Why don't we try to pool our resources and come up with a collaborative effort to kind of deal with the issue? Weeks before that, we actually testified at a public safety committee hearing where one of the representatives was trying to pass legislation that would give a lot of money to agencies to help recruitment and retention. And as I testified in that hearing, and as I began to talk about some of the negative messaging that has affected our profession, one of the representatives said, "Have you conducted any kind of a climate survey to confirm that that's actually why people aren't doing this job?" So, at first, and I admitted this to her recently, that I was a little flip with my answer when I said, "Your climate survey is around the room with all the chiefs that are telling you that we're in trouble." The reality is we don't really have that answer. So part of this proposal is we're working with a group that Chief Ogden's going to talk about here in a second to do a massive climate survey. This is a statewide initiative where we're going to target anybody that is a potential applicant and do a handful of things. Identify things that are preventing them from applying to this job, and then maybe have them identify things that might draw them to the job. And then the same type of survey to our own folks. The idea is to grab as much data as we can to find out what people are thinking and why they're not doing this job, and then take that data and then create a handful of different very, very positive messages and then just market a significant marketing campaign where we literally flip the narrative on policing with fact, and that's an important part of this. We've been accused over the last 4 years of not being very communicative. We don't talk about ourselves. And the reality is, it's hard. These are full-time jobs for us. It's not, marketing's not necessarily part of that. So the idea is to work with a company that knows how to do that. A lot of the narrative that has been spent over the last few years has been inaccurate, and it has scared people. We've talked about institutional knowledge walking out at the 20-year mark. That is we've lost future leaders because of hearing things about qualified immunity being removed, and things like that scared an entire generation of police officers. And some of the best walked out at the 20-year mark, and on the way out told the next generation, "Don't go in there." And that has caused significant damage that is going to take a long time to repair. So the idea is gather this data, draft messaging, identify the faces of our community that can deliver this message, people that our community trusts. A diverse, well-spoken, energetic message from folks about what we do. There's also, on a national perspective, we talked about this at the mid-year, starting to use some of the data we're collecting nationally that offsets this narrative that we've been listening to for the last 4 years, that shows that what has been said is not accurate. And then breathe life back into this profession. There is a calling, for the most part, to this, and I don't know that can go away. I just think that it's been scared, that they're hiding, but the idea is to go find them. One of the things the senator talked about was mainstreaming the process, and I'm going to turn this over to Chief Ogden, but after we do this marketing and we send this messaging, our idea is we're going to draw the applicants or the candidates into our website on the association, and then have access to part 2 of this program.
Yeah, so one of the things that we thought about from our perspective, you got to keep in mind, Delaware's small. You can get from one end to the other end in 2 hours. We only have about 1 million people in the whole state. There's 50 police departments, only about 2,500 police officers. So we're all competing for that same small group of people. So one of the things, it was a combination probably of, I work in a university setting, and I had 2 daughters in college, and I thought, our system's archaic. You got these young people out of college, and they're coming in, and you're throwing 30 pages of paper at them and say, "Get a pen and fill this out." They don't want to do that. They want to do it all right here from their phone. So we're going to create a common app for Delaware law enforcement. So somebody can go in, they say they apply to a big agency like Colonel Block's agency, and for whatever reason they don't get hired. Instead of starting that process all over again with Chief McCabe, they just go right back into the app and go, Newcastle City, and boom, all the information's populated for them. The other thing the app will do is, if they're successful throughout the written test and the physical test and the interviews, they go on to a background phase. So when you start the background investigation, everything's already all loaded into the app. There might be additional questions to ask, but they can do it right from their phone, and they can apply to multiple agencies at once. So the thought process is that we want to streamline the process for the applicant and streamline it for us to make it easier on us and make it easier on them. We're also in the process of trying to create a common written test and a common physical test, and this will all be part of our police officers' standards and training regulations for the state. So again, if somebody applies to a larger agency and they're not hired, and then they apply to my agency, I can look at the app and go, already submitted the application, already took the written test and passed, already took the physical test. I don't have to go through all that. I just call them right in for an interview and we're off. So it's really going to streamline the process for us and for them. So we are working with two sister companies to try to do the recruiting end of it, the marketing end of it, and to create this app. So we really think it's going to be innovative and a great thing, but it all costs money.
And I'll say I agree with the chief, it's the calling. Being a police officer is a calling like a teacher is, or like a pastor is, or a fireman. And if you follow that calling, the career is a pretty easy career. It's an easier career. And at HPD currently, we are offering a $10,000 bonus if you apply with HPD. And we're hearing now that they're increasing that to $15,000. The downside to that is that these kids are kind of, and I call them kids too, by the way, they're chasing the $15,000 and not necessarily the calling. And so they're there for a short time. I think everybody up here, a lot of years up here, it's been a career for us. For those kids, it's a job. And so we're trying to spin that around too. And talking about the old guys, talking bad about the department, I spend most of my time, I think, telling the old guys just to shut up and quit talking bad about the department, because you didn't leave over your 30 years, so it wasn't that bad. So yeah, part of our problem too is the old guys saying this place is terrible, and it's not. It's still a great career. I still love this career. So
One thing that Arlington has done is we finally got our first recruiting officer. We have 2 of them now. They have a recruiting band. They get to travel all over the world to try to get people to come to Arlington to apply. That's been very helpful. We're hoping they'll expand that here in the next few years, so that way we can continue to get new applicants. Like I said before, we are actually taking applicants from other states. We've had several from California that come into Texas. We are just trying our best to keep our numbers afloat, and hopefully we'll be able to do that. But mainly what we can do is, I'm also the president of our local police association. So what I have to do is I have to go out and make the public aware. Hey, are y'all aware that this and this and this is going on in your city, that we don't have enough officers to answer all the calls you need that are coming in? So we met with the Arlington Taxpayer Alliance and informed them that to this day we have yet to have any training at any of our venues in the city of Arlington, meaning we have not had a mass casualty training event at AT&T, Global Outfield, Hurricane Harbor, or Six Flags, because we don't have the manpower to have those training classes. So we're starting to get out there into the public and fill them in on what's going on, what we need help with. We have a silent majority. Everybody here can tell you about it. Those are the people that come up to us and shake our hand and say, thank you for what you do. Those are the people that buy us dinner when they see us out at dinner. Those are the people that we need to actually come up and start stepping up and saying, hey, this is what we need for our police.
We need a platform to deliver this message, and that's really what we're looking for, because the reality is there are more that support that concept than don't. They just don't have the voice.
Squeaky wheel is the only thing you hear.
I think that leads well into our final question, which is what can us here in Congress, what can the federal government do that we aren't doing that would help the issues that you all discussed today?
I guess the obvious answer is funding, right? But the reality is the messaging is huge. We need help delivering this message. We need help delivering the facts and talking about the positive things that are happening in our agencies and in our communities, and to help draw light back to this profession. And it's not about saying we're heroes. It's about recognizing that we do something that a lot of other people can't or won't, and we need help. And we need help delivering that message, because me saying this is not the same thing as when Senator Coons is genuinely talking about his support. That goes well beyond anything that I could say.
One thing that was not said that I think is very important that we all need to remind ourselves as leaders is, to your point earlier, police officers see horrific things on a daily basis, so we really need to make a concerted effort on officer wellness and resiliency, so that they don't become these older police officers talking bad about the department and encouraging people to leave. We need them to know that they're valued as a member of the department, and that there's resources for them. I mean, little things that I've done in my department is we have a gym inside our building. We allow officers to work out on their lunch hour. We have a officer wellness room where they can go and sit in a lounger that's a massage chair and just unwind for a little while. We're in the process now talking about, most departments throughout the country have annual physicals, where they go out and they take a physical assessment or whatever, but we're not doing anything to look at anybody's mental fitness, so we're thinking about that, like how can we have some type of program where we're checking up and making sure that people know that we care about them. Because as I said when I started, I think our police officers are our best recruiters. So if we take care of them and they feel well, they're going to deliver that positive message, and we're going to be able to recruit people in that way.
I would even go to say that we need a national public service announcement. Much like when the military was having trouble recruiting, you saw military commercials and public addresses all for months to help recruit more people into the military services. Well, I think that's what we could use now.
If I could just add a couple things just at the federal level, because that was one of my, the ROTC and junior ROTC programs the military did after Vietnam. But student loan forgiveness, there is a program out there for public safety, but it takes 10 years before you can recoup the money from the loan, which after 10 years, most people have the loan paid off. So a quicker student loan forgiveness for first responders, lower federally backed interest loans for new-time home buyers of law enforcement that wants to live in the communities that they work in. It's an incentive to get into law enforcement. Federal tax credits for first responders, early Medicare. I'll be 55 this year. I'm forced to retire, so then there's a long period of time without health care. So an early Medicare program for first responders. Just some things that the federal government could do to help us recruit and retain officers.
Yeah, and I'd say for me, going on the facts, we need help getting the facts out there. You can throw all kinds of money at policing, but if you don't get the facts out there, it is really, really sad at all levels that you're on the scene, and the next thing you know, days later, weeks later, the narrative has completely changed, and it's not true. And I know that's what sells television, that's what sells news, that's what people, that's what the citizens like to see, but it's not true. And after a while, the kids, after they hear you're bad, you're bad, you're bad, you're bad, after a while, it's like, forget this, I'm not doing this. So I think even public service announcements from the federal level that, what the facts are, what police officers really do. We've got some kids out there, we have a Houston officer a couple months ago that was shot 11 times and survived. I saw him at the airport. And a lot of kids out there doing some great things that no one ever knows about.
We have one really strong local media outlet. Philly and Baltimore come in, but one real in the state, one media outlet, and I don't know if it was last year or the year before, the first Wednesday of every May is Police Memorial in Dover, where the county will have their memorial, the state, and then we all meet in Dover, read the list of names of the fallen. And on that day, that media outlet decided to publish an article reliving all of the misconduct and all of the controversial force incidents that had been talked about time and time again, and decided to relive that on the day of the memorial. So there was no coincidence to that, and those are the battles we have right now. We don't have that platform to deliver a message. It's been taken, and we're trying to fight to get that back.
Thank you. Those are all very helpful ideas, I'm sure, for everyone in the room, and I want to make sure we have time in case any of the audience members have questions for our panelists. Yeah.
Sure. So kind of goes back to the very start, talking about salaries and benefits and those, lateral transfers and things like that. But there was recent news, just came out today, from Washington State Senator Cantwell's office. And so I don't know any office policy on this, but Seattle just voted to raise their starting salaries for officers. Is that a solution that you all see as a a good thing, as something that could take away from the jurisdictions that share Seattle? Or my question is basically, is that a good thing or is it more complicated?
Well, I'm right now in the middle of the contract negotiation, so do you mind if I go first?
Go ahead.
I think it's a good thing. I think as long as other agencies can, that there's going to be that competition. So smaller agencies are going to have to recognize if you want this service, you're going to have to pay for it, right? And that's what we're telling folks. So, but the reality is that even the highest paid police departments in this country aren't getting applicants. So it's not all about salary, but it certainly it's going to help retain, and at least the shiny object will draw the attention. So you combine that with some with the good positive messaging, I think it is helpful. And I also think we're starting to recognize that our salaries have not been keeping up with with inflation and with the economy. Our guys are recognizing that. So yeah, I do think it's a little bit helpful.
Kind of believe it's kind of a double-edged sword, because in Texas, we have departments that only have 5 officers. You know, we have cities that only have 5 officers or 7 officers. So when these bigger cities start upping the pay, a lot of those officers start going to the big city, and then you have these small communities that don't have any police, and then it falls back on either state police or county police to handle that. So yes, it's great that they're paying us what we need to, but how they're going to manage it so that it doesn't hurt the smaller departments is going to be a tough call.
Thank you.
I'll say that Texas was not a defund state during all the civil unrest, right? So throwing the money at us absolutely is a help. But when you're in some cities who defunded the police, treated their police like crap, and then you want to throw money all of a sudden, I don't know. Come to Texas.
Like Austin. It looks like, all those people that defunded Austin, now they're having to pay more. So it looks like maybe they made the wrong choice, the wrong decision.
I was gonna mention Austin, but I wanted to offer Tim an opportunity because you just lost your chief of police in a controversy about having a policy where a lot of criminal investigations weren't done for a lack of staffing. And when it became public, it got presented as somehow it was something untoward. But when you don't have the people, when you don't have the personnel, what else are you going to do? And I guess that's my question. Chris mentioned his department is pulling more detectives out of CID, putting them out on patrol. When you're taking you 9, 10, 15 minutes to respond to emergency calls, how do you follow up on investigations? Or how do you tell your citizens, we just don't have time to follow up?
Well, interesting you should ask that. We have 3 assistant chiefs that are on this trip, and we did just lose our chief because the Houston Police Department was unable to investigate about 260,000 incidents that occurred over the last 5 or 6 years, and that's a bad deal. It's a very bad deal. The new chiefs, we've talked a lot about it here this week, is starting to maybe tell some of this, like the chiefs that are here, if you want the service, you've got to pay for it. We may end up in large agencies telling some citizens when they call, we're not coming. Currently in Houston, Texas, if you call the police with a stubbed toe and you insist on a police officer, we go to the scene. And all that really does is it just stretches the manpower. And so when somebody really does need something, they're not able to get a police officer because we're tied up in other places. So we're looking at saying no to some of the minor things, allowing some people who need a case number for insurance reasons to be able to get online and do it so online. No suspects, no evidence, no nothing, doing it that way. I think policing has to change, although I love the way it is, but that's the only way I know. And I like seeing some of the young chiefs and the young captains coming along, young assistant chiefs come along, and maybe looking at different ways of policing. Because currently we can't do what we've always done, especially in a major city. In Houston, we have a little over 2 million people that live there. We're growing like no other. We have the same amount of police officers now that we did 15 years ago, and the population has greatly increased. During the week, we probably have 7.5 to 10 million people that come through Houston, traveling through, coming into work, coming in for events, and we just don't have the manpower to take care of everybody. You know, you come in from another city and your car gets broken into and you wait 3 or 4 hours for a unit to get there, it's a little tough.
We
I
found
think-
it happened to us.
Yeah.
My truck got
We kind of
burglarized.
did the same thing. Patrol officers now do what's called a field clearance. If we go to a vehicle burglary or to anything there's no actual evidence to follow up on, we tell the citizen, hey, we'll take your report, but we're going to be able to clear this. There will be no further investigation. Because you don't have a license plate of anybody, you don't have any description, there's no video footage. But just so you know, we're taking your report, there'll be no further investigation.
Sometimes I think we have strength and weakness in our size. So sometimes, you know, you're a huge agency like Houston, sometimes it's a weakness because you don't think about, you know, what can I control within my own agency. We're so small and we have a collaborative mindset that, you know, if you can't handle things, I'll reach out to the colonel, like we were just talking this morning. He's going to help me out with commencement, you know, like, so I think that, you know, sometimes collaboration is the key to things, you know, creating federal task forces or even, you know, county or state task forces to do things. And, you know, we're kind of blessed in Delaware that our strength is our size, you know, because we're small, everybody knows everybody, and we all kind of collaborate to get the job done.
If I could just say one thing, I think it's interesting that, you know, a lot of times when I deal with my department, people think it's Newcastle County Police Department, all these issues are within our department, and if I go to another department, there aren't those issues. I think it's interesting that this panel is made up of Texas and Delaware, and our problems are the same as their problems. And that's the whole point of this, is a nationwide problem that has to be addressed nationally, not just locally. So I just wanted to point that out.
Yeah, I think that's a helpful note to end on. So I just want to thank our terrific panelists for taking the time to be here today, and for giving us such great on-the-ground perspectives that we don't hear here in Congress every day. So thank you.
Thank you.
How about for our great moderator as well?